Yo, 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 fancy community, welcome to Proper Things, the FPL show brought to you by the ttfplproleague. And we back after an international break. I know everyone missed the football this past weekend. I don't know what we did. Instead of, tinkering with our teams, maybe we got caught up with the Nations League, maybe some NFL, etc., some family time. But big news from the Norway international game with Arsenal captain Martin Odegaard suffering a suspected injury that may keep him out of the North London derby. At the time of recording, we don't know how impactful that injury is going to be to the Arsenal squad going forward. But with Spurs at the weekend and Manchester City in game week 5, it's definitely a story to keep monitoring. With that being said, you know that this weekend we back for game week 4 of the new season. You know, a lot of people were happy with the first 3 game weeks. A lot of points were there to be had. Double hat tricks back to back from Erling Haaland. Triple captains were played. So without further ado, let's see how my team did in game week 3. So the final boss, my team, had a big green arrow this last game we gave week 3 as we rose to just outside the top million now. We at 1,084,237. You know, with all the triple captains played thus far, I think that we're in a good position now to make our move heading into this 4-game week bracket here before the second international break. So let's see how the boys did in game week 3. In the goalkeeping position, we finally got something more than the bare minimum as Henderson returned 4 points. Konza and Vardiol could only combine for 4 points as they both blank, but as we know, only Liverpool kept a clean sheet in game week 3. So 2 each for Konza and Vardiol. Robinson had another assist to keep his tally to 4 for game week 3. In midfield, new arrival, Rodgers blanked in a favourable fixture, so 2 points for him. Mo Salah kept his hot streak alive, 17 points, Jota with 3, and we finally got rewarded for our patience with Eze returning a dirty 10 points there from the Englishman. In the attack, another frustrating week from the Brazilian from Fulham and Muniz blanking again for 2 points. Erling Haaland, back-to-back hat-tricks, another one in game week 3 with a total of 34 points. And then Isaac, again, patience being rewarded with the Swedish striker rewarding us with 9 points. So in a total of 89 points, we got that big green arrow to half our position in the world standings, you know, so big green arrows and we moving on up. Of course, we still have the wild card and that coveted triple captain to be played for a later time. So we're looking to make moves again in this 4-game block before the international break, part 2. So now looking at the red flags in my team, there's one urgent DEFCON immediate, as we call it, in one being Muniz from Fulham, the striker. And if we take a look at the 3-game, returns from Muniz, who was 6 million when I bought him, we got 6 points. João Pedro, who was 5.5 at the beginning of the season, returned 18 points. Wood, who was also 6 million, returned 19 points. Visa returned 21 points and Welbeck returning 23 points. All these forwards were in that $6 million bracket or a little cheaper in João Pedro's case, being 5.5, and we could see the points disparity. It was just tough watching for those 3 game weeks. If you had Muniz, we could see the big point differential. 12 points difference if you just had João Pedro for the first 3 weeks. And of course, Visa, you could add another 3 on that for 15 points disparity. So Muniz has outgrew his welcome in the final boss team and will definitely have to be moved on. We also have a problem with Lewis Hall, who has lost his spot in Newcastle's defense. He doesn't look like he's one of Eddie Howe's starters going forward, so he will definitely have to be moved on as soon as possible. Vardiol is also becoming a little problem, but not as urgent as the first 2, as with Rico Lewis playing the inverted role, Vardiol is now playing the more standard centre-back role, so he's not getting forward as much. So at 6 million, maybe I could spend the extra million and get Trent Alexander-Arnold in. And finally, patience was key with Isaac, but we want to give him a little more time in game week 4 and 5 before we inevitably hop off the Swedish striker, but he's also on the list, but not as priority as Muniz and as definitely not as Hall either. So in my case, of course, wanting to move on Muniz, and if the other owners have Muniz or a striker within the price bracket of the Brazilian and they're looking to move on from him, some of the solutions as follows. And I think the best alternative, if you don't already have him, will be João Pedro of Brighton, coming in at 5.6 million. I mean, look at the price tag, look at the form, and look at the fixtures that Brighton have, with Ipswich, Nottingham Forest, and Chelsea carded for the next 3. Ipswich, not one of the no fancy teams coming up from the Championship, and they have leaked some goals, and I expect João Pedro to continue his hot streak versus them against Forest, and as well as Chelsea, who have shown their defensive fragilities. The only problem that me have a little trepidation around João Pedro coming into your team for game week 4 is that not so nice surprise of him getting a late call up to the Brazilian national team. Now, while he may not be a starter, he still has to go down to South America, be part of the team, and then fly back to England. He'll be flying back in a little later than some of the other players who are playing in Europe. So he should be back in Brighton by Thursday. And then the press conference will be key Friday to see his availability for the 10 o'clock game slots on Saturday. So I'm not 100% João Pedro starts, but he's definitely the best striking option for the next 3 fixtures. So if you have the ability to move on from Muniz, you don't already have João Pedro, I think he's still the best option. He's also locked in on penalties for Brighton. Next solution is his teammate in Danny Welbeck. And you know that we don't have the problems with Danny playing in the international break, as he's not currently playing in the English setup. Again, he has the same fixtures as João Pedro, so the schedule is not a problem, and form is not a problem as well, as he's been reigning in the points. As I said, 23 points in the first 3 game weeks. So Danny Welbeck is one to definitely keep an eye on and possibly bring in for game week 4, but I think this could be one of the short-term transfer ins, because we know that Evan Ferguson is highly touted in Brighton, and he has returned to the main squad. He hasn't started a game yet, but I think that he will be pushing to get into that starting lineup. And while Danny Welbeck should keep his spot, he may lose a lot of minutes to Evan Ferguson off the bench. So even if Welbeck is making 75 minutes, etc., he's still losing 15 to Evan. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on going forward on the minutes for Danny Welbeck. Next up is Visa from Brentford, coming in at the $6 million price tag. However, the problem with Visa is his fixtures. As we can see, the next 2 for Visa is going to be Manchester City and Tottenham. While I do believe Tottenham could be got at defensively, the Manchester City fixture immediately off the international break in game week 4 could ward possible managers away from this Brentford striker. I don't think it's a good idea to bring him in ahead of the City game at the Etihad. I think that there could be more points on offer, but from game week 6 going forward, I think Visa could be an absolute steal at his price point. I mean, seeing that he's getting into the right positions and returning attacking returns, so definitely keep an eye on Visa. And finally, a little more expensive, you'll have to spend a little more coppers for this solution, but it's Nico Jackson of Chelsea. If you look at the fixtures for Chelsea, the next 3 are the Cherries in Bournemouth, West Ham United, and Brighton. And coming in at his price tag, 7.1 mil now, I think that Jackson could prove to be a steal, especially for those who don't have Cole Palmer. I mean, Cole Palmer is Cole Palmer. He is the best Chelsea asset, and there are a lot of new faces in Chelsea, especially Jadon Sancho, Felix, etc., who are looking to come into the starting lineup. Still the old names as Madueke, Neto, and of course, Fantasy, Outcast, and Kunku. I think Jackson is going to be stuck in that number 9 position. He's Chelsea's favored number 9. However, if you already have Cole Palmer, you might not want to go double trouble with the Chelsea attack. But for those who don't have Cole Palmer, like myself, I think Nico Jackson is definitely worth a proper look. I currently am leaning towards moving Muniz to my _1 option in João Pedro. And I think that move will benefit my team in the long run, as it helps me save further add to my transfer kitty, and possibly getting Cole Palmer in game week 5. But I have to keep an eye on the transfer news, the fitness news from the Brighton coach, to see if João Pedro is going to be fit to play on Saturday. So that is the only trepidation with bringing João Pedro in ahead of game week 4. And like I said, Lewis Hall is also a big red flag in my team, as currently I only have that bare 11, as they say in small goal, as Lewis Hall, Barco, and of course Wings not really being the best bench options for my team, and especially with that big chance kitty I have in the bank to spend. Now, if I want to make a move away from Lewis Hall and bring in a defender that I fancy, I think that buying into the Arsenal defense will be my best bet. Whether it be Saliba, Gabriel, or even Ben White, I can afford either one of those defenders. The problem with going for Arsenal in game week 4 is that I buy into the North London derby, and then I buy into the crunch match with Manchester City in game week 5. I think buying into the Arsenal defense right now may not be optimal. It's not the best two fixtures to buy into them, but they have green beams on a schedule that will make you smile from game week 6, 7, and 8. If you could just bide your time and hopefully the price rises and price drops don't get you caught in the wash, you could eventually move into Arsenal defender. Another player in my thoughts is definitely Trent Alexander-Arnold, as I think he's definitely worth the $7 million price tag, but unfortunately I can't move from Lewis Hall to Trent. The only way to properly get Trent into this squad without taking a hit is to move Vardiol into Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I'll definitely be looking to see if Kyle Walker returns into the starting lineup for City, because if Rico Lewis continues to play for City, I don't think that Vardiol is worth that $6 million price tag, especially if you could get Trent at 7, because if Rico is playing, Vardiol is more now that sitting centre back, and he's not getting as forward as we accustomed seeing at the back end of last season. So I think the Arsenal defenders at 6 and Trent at 7 would prove to be better value than Vardiol at $6 million. And like I said at the top of the video, for managers who have Martin Odegaard, we are hearing that it's an injury there coming out from the Nations League game with Norway. We don't know how serious the injury is going to be, but that is definitely going to impact the Arsenal assets, as I am one who was looking to bring in Kai Havertz, aka Cobra Kai, but with the injury to Odegaard, I don't know now if Arteta will be forced to push Kai now into midfield and maybe open up a route now for Jesus, or maybe Raheem the Dream Sterling to come into that starting lineup. So we definitely have to hear from Arsenal's gaffer on Friday and see how they line up for the North London derby, and then at City before that nice stretch of games for Arsenal in game week 6 to 8. But big injury news there for Odegaard, and for all managers looking to make moves or who haven't made their moves as yet, I think it would be wise to hear from the managers in their press conferences Friday, as we have a lot of players returning from all parts of the globe with their various international commitments. So we don't know how the minutes are going to shape up for game week 4. So it could definitely be worth hearing from the managers before you make your moves ahead of game week 4. Another factor, of course, is the Champions League will be kicking off 1 week from today, next week Tuesday. And the 4 teams in England that will be part of it, of course, will be my boys, the champions, Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool are back, and then Aston Villa making their long-awaited return to Europeans' top competition. That being said, you know the ttfplproleague has you covered. They have their Champions League competition going on. It's only $150 to sign up. So make sure and contact Ezra. I know he's going to put his contact details right here. It's easy and simple. Just message this number, talk to Ezra and say interested in joining, and he'll make it really easy for you. You know, he's a real competent guy, real funny guy, and of course he'll give you that banter what Arsenal going to win their first Champions League. But you could just skip that and just say send the league code when you get your details sorted. You don't have to take on that little banter from Ezzy, because he'll keep you there all day talking about that now. Right, so don't forget, next week Tuesday the Champions League starts. So you have 1 week message Ezra and get signed up. You don't want to miss out. $150 to sign up and $2,500 on $2,500 for the winner, and of course prizes for second, third, challenge trophy, and all those niceness. So make sure and get that in before it's too late. And now the last piece of business is, of course, Captaincy Corner. Here's where I give you my best 5 captaincy options going into this game week. So have no fear, Captaincy Corner is here if you're having those dilemmas with who to put the armband on. You know, last game week it was a toss-up between Palmer and Holland, and all those who went Palmer just cut off the app, didn't come back into the app thus far, as Palmer could only return an assist, and Erling Haaland went back-to-back on hat-trick, so 3 more in game week, 3 from Erling. I think once you have the Norwegian, there's no debate. You just have to ride the hot hand at this point. Although Liverpool have a more favourable fixture than Manchester City, I think it will be a brave man to walk away from a hot hand as Erling Haaland. Although Salah and Erling both have returned the same 41 points thus far in fantasy football, I think it will take a brave man who owns Haaland to not captain him at home versus the Honeybees of Brentford in Game Week 4. So I think without a shadow of a doubt, if you own the Norwegian hitman, he will have the armband on him for Game Week 4. In second position, as mentioned, at the top of the fantasy points table are Haaland and Salah. So Salah will come in at 2 with a game versus Nottingham Forest in Game Week 4. So no doubt on who the top 2 are. And number 3, we have to go Cole Palmer coming in the bronze medal position. A great game for Chelsea. I think Palmer was rested here for the international game, so no more minutes on that body, so he'll have time to get right from the little niggles he had. I think he'll be ready to fire come Game Week 4. In the number 4th position is a guy who's making his debut here on Captaincy Corner. I think this is an optimal pick, but this is a pick for those guys who are just trying to get back into things with a bang. And I'm speaking about Bruno Fernandes of Manchester United. They have Southampton in the early morning kickoff. I mean, you're going to have leaks to see if Bruno starts. I think with Southampton, if you have Bruno, this could be the only opportunity. You do have to captain him. If you do have him, you're definitely going to put him out there and are going to sell ahead of Southampton. I expect Bruno to return some much needed points for his owner, so he comes in at 4. But I can't put him ahead of the big 3 right now. And then the cheeky ball play, and this is absolute cheek here at number 5, has to be Luis Diaz from Liverpool. Cheeky ball simply because he's been in hot form, but he will be returning from South America after playing part of Colombia's international game. So, and with Liverpool playing in the Champions League midweek, you definitely want to keep an eye on. But hot hand with Diaz, if you have him and you want to go against the big 3, you don't own Bruno, I think there could be points in store for Luis Diaz. And that concludes Captaincy Corner for Game Week 4. Best of luck, and I hope you all reign in the fantasy points. And that brings us to the end of episode 7 and the Game Week 4 preview here on Proper Things. I hope you all had fun listening to the episode. If you all agree with the picks, I'd like to hear from you all in the comment section. If you don't agree with the picks, I want to hear from you all as well if you have different alternatives. If you got stung by Palmer, if you were in Haaland happiness, if you got away with the Salah captaincy points last week, I want to hear from you all as well. And don't forget to like the video while you're there and subscribe to the channel. I know every little bit helps, and I appreciate all the support. Again, don't forget to hit Ezra up for the Champions League that begins next week, Tuesday. I wish you all a great Game Week 4, and don't forget to do proper things in all walks of life. I'll see you all next week.